on time. Every year, the maximum counts was about 150. The third point is the Gemini meteor shower is usually very bright. The meteors have a long tail and bright color. Since it is relevant to a metal-made asteroid, that explains the bright light. And also the third fact to mention is about the winter time. At this moment of the year, you could also see some other planets in the sky, for example, Saturn and Jupiter. So I think it's the perfect time to observe the meteor shower. In the end of the year, we could see such a colorful meteor shower. It's really something to look forward to. And also, Mr. Zhang, as you have mentioned, this meteor shower is colorful and bright with different colors to offer, and usually the shower comes in time. We frequently say that there usually is such a peak count. When does it happen, usually? I was frequently asked about this question in such science education programs. Indeed, there is such a peak count for meteor shower, but it's unlike the rainfall. We cannot use the meteorological forecast to predict. And as has been said, when the Earth passes through such a meteor shower, there might be some small pieces of rocks attracted to the Earth, and then when they fly in the cosmos, they become such meteor showers. So to predict their coming, we need to know the distribution of those rocks, but it's very difficult. We could only get a rough idea about the days. I heard that this shower is relevant to asteroid Phaethon, and we know about the orbit of that asteroid. Usually it's around December 12th, December 13th, and 14th. Since we know that with the gravity of that asteroid, there will be gravity between the asteroid and the Earth, so there will be some shower. For example, in the mid-time of the 13th and 14th of December, that would be the premium time. But we cannot forecast very precise time points, just like forecasting the rainfall. For example, at what hour? Usually when we take photos, some people ask me, when would the meteor shower start? I would say that they are always there. I have to inform people about that science, unlike what we expected. It's just like the blockbuster. We cannot predict the exact time that the shower starts. We can predict roughly about the meteor shower coming when the Earth crosses through the orbit, but as to the exact time point, it's very difficult to forecast. For this round of Geminid meteor shower, what would be the rough time range for the peak count? Yesterday night, while I observed, it was pretty big enough. Basically, we can count one meteor every minute in Lijiang. Last year, the peak time came at 3 to 4 of December the 13th. Basically, the count was around 450 to 500 per 1 hour. Of course, the count we observed with our naked eye might be different from that observed with real-time monitoring, because we cannot look up at the space all the time, but the observation facilities and equipment could be able to keep observing real-time. And secondly, as I said, sometimes the equipment can observe what our naked eyes cannot. Compared to the others, the Geminid meteor shower is made of many fireballs, and it's made of metals. And the color is brighter than the other meteor showers, so it's easier to observe. Mr. Wang mentioned about the bright colors, and we tend to believe that meteors are in the silver-white color like in the animations. And when you mention about the colorful state of the meteor shower, what is the reason? That's because of the temperature of the metals. For example, iron, nickel, magnesium. The color may be greener or bluer. So different metals carry different colors. It's just like our fireworks. The fireworks are colorful. Sometimes we light up a fire and we spread some salt, grains, and the fire would turn yellow. That's kind of a chemical reaction. And in the meteor, there are so many metal. And different metals may have different reaction against the fire, so the fire changes colors. And as you said, compared to the other two meteor showers in the Northern Hemisphere, Geminid meteor shower is brighter. The reason that the shower is colorful is because the parent body of some meteors may be the comets. And what about the composition of this Geminid meteor shower? As I said, the parent body is asteroid Fathong, numbered 3200. For example, compared to the one that happened in June or in May, most of their parent bodies were the comets, but this time, the parent body of Geminid is different. So with the asteroid parent body, it's very special. For the meteor shower with comets as the parent body, what is the composition of their tails? Ice and water. For example, the Orion meteor shower, the parent body of Orion is the comet of Halley. That's brand new information. And you mentioned that the parent body this time is asteroid Fathong, and the dust of that asteroid become the meteors. So is rock the main component of the meteors? In the early days, we studied about where did the water on Earth came from, and we concluded that comets were the reasons for the ice and water. And take the Mars and Mercury as an example. They are rock-made planets, and on Earth, most of the Earth is made of metals and rocks, aside from water. And Mars is covered by iron. So it looks like iron color in red. I think that's quite a similar pattern. And since the meteors have the composition of rocks with very complex mineral components, that's the difference from the comets. Comets' composition is more simpler. I think that explains why the meteor shower has caused some flame test reaction, leading to the colorful result. And also, Mr. Wang, most of the meteors come from the dissolution of comets, but for Geminid meteor shower, it comes from the asteroid, and it's mostly made of rocks. Would that explain the big count of Geminid meteor shower? Actually, that That's not true. That asteroid is pretty big. It's about the size of 10 kilometers, and the diameter, the radius of the orbit is pretty short. And Geminid meteor shower count is very big and stable. I'm not sure if I'm right. He said about every 1.4 years time, it would come back once. It was influenced by the solar wind. So every 1.4 years, there would be a lot more debris. And when the Earth passes by in the cosmos, to give you a metaphor, the Earth is rotating on its orbit. It's like a highway, and the Earth is like a truck. We never slow down, we never decelerate, and we have no lamps in the front, so we bump into those debris. Sometimes, when we have some individual meteors and we bump into the individual meteors, they may just disappear with just some remains on the Earth. But for the Geminid meteor shower, it's like all of those obstacles on the highway come together towards us and we bump into all of the meteors. And that makes the Geminid meteor shower phenomenon. Yesterday night, we were able to observe Geminid meteor shower, and as has been said, with our naked eyes, it's about 1 meteor per minute. So, did you have some professional observation yesterday evening? What about the count? The Yunnan Astronomy Observatory had such an observation site in Baoshan, and we observed over 100 meteors. One from the sunset, or what? With the rotation, the auto rotation, after midnight it's easier to observe the meteors. And also the revolution and the auto rotation are in opposite direction. That's why after midnight we have bigger likelihood of observing the meteors. As you said, the auto rotation is following the opposite direction of the meteors. That's why later after midnight, the count of meteors would be bigger. And of course, the moon plays a role here. As he said, we have bigger opportunities of observation after midnight. And yesterday, with the moon coming out, there will be some impact over our sight, especially in Lijiang with purity of the atmosphere and the high altitude. When the moon comes out, it's like light pollution. Yesterday, when it approached sunrise, the moon came out. This year is truly a very good opportunity to observe Geminid meteor shower. Last year, when it was the full moon, we observed the meteor shower, so it was not so magnificent because of the moonlight. So that's a good explanation. It's rare for us to imagine that the moon may be light pollution. After all, we have a Chinese saying that when the moonlight is bright, the stars are weak in sight. And yesterday we did some interviews with those lovers of astronomy. People got very excited about it. They say that yesterday we basically couldn't see the moon. And especially it's worth mentioning that yesterday was the last quarter of the moon. But last year, the moon was like a big lamp. Some people say that last year, the moon was like the headlights on the full beam. So we are pretty lucky this year. For your information, the moon rises every day at a later time compared to the day before. Let's take the Chinese lunar time of the 15th of the month. After that day, the moon rises a little bit later than the previous day. For example, after the 15th of the month in the lunar calendar, the moon would come out after midnight. Like yesterday, the moon didn't come up until 4 to 5 before sunrise. And when it came to the 30th of the month in Chinese lunar calendar, the moon was invisible because the moon came out at the same time with the sun and it was overshadowed by the sunlight. And at the 15th of the month, the moon came out only when the sun exited. So we must choose the time of traveling and observation properly. If you want to observe before midnight, try to observe between the 15th and the 30th of the month. So today we learn about something about the moon. Previously, I was told that by the end of November, on the 15th and 16th of the month, people see the supermoon. That was the second largest full moon in 2025. But of course, we suffered from the light pollution if you want to observe the stars. Yes, I see. For us too, the moon is not very friendly to us. If you are a lunar scientist or if you want to mount on the moon, that would be proper. Our director has prepared some clips about the meteor formation. And we would love to invite our guests to introduce the details. For the majority of meteors, what are the reasons for their formation? Our planet evolves around the sun, and it revolves very quickly. It's about 30 kilometers per second. That's like a somersault by Sun Wukong. And when it revolves, there will be some accident, like a transportation accident, with some collapse and collision. We can see beautiful flames among those clashes. Meteor shower seems very romantic, but every year there are about 30,000 tons of dust falling down on the Earth from the cosmos. From a scientific perspective, that's pretty overwhelming and sometimes frightful. Mr. Zhang, as Mr. Wang mentioned, in the cosmos, while we are doing some scientific observation in our truck, and to continue the metaphor about the transportation, there will be some other trucks running on the highway throwing down the debris like the trash, and we may bump into one another, and with the collision, they would combust in the air. So to put it this way, all the meteors are scattered all around. the cosmos. And the density of those meteors is pretty high. But of course, we cannot compare the density with the Earth because the cosmos is too big compared to the Earth. Different scales. Every day we have such accidental meteor. If you pay attention, you can observe one meteor almost every day. It's just that, like we said, there are some regular time of such trucks running on a fixed orbit, and they throw down those debris. And when the Earth runs into those trucks, there will be meteor phenomenon. We also have some man-made satellites. When their lives came to the end, they fall to the atmosphere of the Earth and they combust as well. We know they are man-made satellites. But the process is the same as the meteor formation. We need the satellites to be burned out. And the burning process is part of the circulation, yes. And to put yourself in another perspective, considering the volume of the Earth, it's not very big compared to the Jupiter. But after all the life of it, it's like 4.6 billion years. And the Earth started its formation from just a little dust, and after 4.6 billion years' time, the Earth evolved from just a piece of rock to this size, bit by bit. So maybe starting from the beginning, we were just a sand, and day after day, it keeps attracting different dusts from around it, and then the Earth came into being. The Earth has never stopped working. It keeps replenishing itself and making itself stronger. Maybe one day the meteor will become part of us, yes. Even though the meteors were burned and turning to the dust or gases, they fall onto the Earth and become part of the Earth. Of course, the meteors are incomparable to the size of the Earth. But after all, the Earth took about 4.6 billion years to become this big. There is still a long way to go. Your story sounds very romantic with some physics knowledge and some culture background, and we certainly want to give a big hand to our Earth. And speaking of the man-made satellites, I do have some interactive questions. Before the start of our show, I saw that on the CCTV app, some commented that we saw a sparkling star in the sky. It seemed to be moving, but it had no tail. Is that a meteor? Some commented that it might be the man-made satellites. Probably. There are several categories to mention. The first one is the flashing meteor. I usually told people that when you observed a meteor, don't tell anyone around you because it just flashed by very quickly. It stayed within your sight for less than 1 second. But of course, Geminid is different. Geminid meteors usually could flash in the sky for a pretty long time. That's why it's quite a feat. And when the meteors flash by in the sky, there will be some colors. So with our studies of the meteors, we can basically understand the composition of its parent body. What about you? Do you think it's probably a satellite? Yes, higher likelihood of being just a satellite. But of course, there are many other possibilities. We may find some fake meteors today, and the man-made satellite's debris after dissolution will become one probability. And if the satellite fails to be successfully launched, it dissolves in the space. And interestingly, there is an LE entertainment company making fireworks for the rich people. They just send the fireworks into the sky to present a fake meteor shower. In the USA, another company collects the ashes of the dead people's body after incineration and then send the ashes to the sky. As we said, usually the meteors stay in the sky for less than 1 second. They started combustion after entering into our atmosphere, and then they come to their peak. So it's easier to make a judgment in your camera. If you see a line with the center thicker than the two ends, it's probably a meteor. But if it's evenly distributed in the line, then it's satellite. For the low-orbit satellite, they can light up the sky for 3 minutes' time. So that's pretty good answer. Our guests believe it's highly likely just a satellite, but of course it can be a hairline. But if the lights come from an airplane, it may blink in red and in green. If it flies irregularly in the sky at a low altitude, it's UAV. And some companies are doing something. They try to control the meteors to create the meteor shower phenomenon. And of course, that's predictable. You would know such information beforehand. The reason that we expect so much from the meteor shower is because it's unexpected. It's just like chewing the melon seeds. You need some waiting time, instead of just having all of the seeds unskinned for you. For example, if you know precisely when the meteor shower would come to you at a fixed time, it may not be romantic. The result is important, but the process matters more. Otherwise, you will lose the more beautiful part of your life. The meteor shower is something we look forward to. People say we want to make wishes to the meteors because they come unexpectedly. They are the pleasant surprises. And allow me to share with you my personal experience. Days ago, in my interview, like Mr. Jiang said, I was doing the interview and all people around us are cheering, but when I turned back, there was nothing out there. I know this happens a lot. Wherever you are, it's possible that people around you are calling out meteors, but when you stare, everything comes back to its original piece. And just tonight, could you please recommend some hours for us to observe, and what equipment do you recommend? First of all, to do some science promotion, the so-called Geminid meteor shower only represent the radiant point. For example, you draw and connect all the meteor dots, and they gather together around the Geminid. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all of the meteors could be observed only in the sphere of Geminid. So you don't have to look for the location of Geminid specifically. You just lay down on your mat and you scan the entire sky to look for the meteor, instead of just fixate your eyes on the Geminid. And secondly, to observe the meteor shower, you don't actually need professional equipment, except you need to take photos. Taking photos of the meteor shower is not very different from taking photos of the galaxy or the Milky Way. We just need to lie down there and look at the sky. You don't necessarily need a telescope. After all, they're accidental. You cannot fix it on just 2 stars. That lowers down your probability of successful observation. So, if you do want to go out, my recommendations are, first, choose a place with less light pollution. If you want to observe meteors under big lamps, that's impossible. Secondly, it's winter time. Keep yourself warm. And thirdly, just lie down and scan the entire sky. I'm convinced that with the stability of Geminid meteor shower, you can encounter at least 1 meteor every 10 minutes as long as your place is dark enough. But if you stay in the shopping mall, it's impossible. And also you need open space. If you have a lot of architectures around you, you will be limited. So the meteor shower is just about probability. And make wishes. Do not shout. Make wishes. Your companies would know that the meteors just flash by. Of course, there might be surprises from the Geminid meteor shower, with a group of meteors falling down. In the camera, sometimes we wonder, why is this line so long? Is that really meteor or a satellite? What about Mr. Wang? What recommendations do you have? I prefer to lie down on my sofa or my bed and just watch the live show and wait for the shower to take place in the big screen. So many astronomy lovers or photographers are right now getting ready their equipment nationwide. And with the communication technologies, we are unrestrained in our observation. And also, the CMG comes to different places to provide this live show. So those several locations, like in Lijiang and elsewhere, enables our viewers to have a higher likelihood of successful observation. Personally, I think if I imagine the sky in front of me as a piece of paper, then maybe the meteor just flashes by from the corner of the paper. Of course, sometimes I may see flames from the meteor, maybe from this angle, and flashes through the paper to the opposite corner. And now, with our live show from different locations, it's like you have different pieces of papers with different sceneries. That's a very helpful observation method. Allow me to cut in. I recommend you to go outdoors to observe meteors. At least you could have interaction with your friends. In Yunnan, we organize people to observe the meteors because we encourage interaction and mutual learning. You can learn how to take photos. Of course, this cannot be provided by live show. I know internet technology is very cutting edge right now, but such face-to-face communication feels different. When people see what you don't, you feel regretful. But when you see something unobserved by the others, you feel satisfied. That's something beautiful about the meteor observation. If all of the meteors could be captured by the camera, there is no surprises. We hope that such outdoor observation is like a festive event. People talk, have some drinks, gather around the fire, camp, and people feel close to one another. That's the contribution made by the meteor shower to a harmonious society. Indeed, The meteor shower brings us some physical phenomenon, but also the visual feat and humanity. When I give lectures, I say that our ancestors were very smart. I studied electronics. 1 + 1 = 2, that's math. How to turn silver into gold, that's chemical. But now we are talking about astronomy. We keep thinking about the relationships. I'm not saying that what we are made of comes from the cosmos, but more importantly, when we look up at the sky, we feel something. For example, we feel homesick when we look up at the moon. At that night, I was in Lijiang and my parents were in Beijing, but we look up at the same moon. We shared the same moon. So our ancestors added a lot of cultural intonations to the appreciation of the cosmos. And that's why we had astronomy science. If you do have an opportunity to go outdoors, we do recommend you to go out. Try to feel with your eyes, to feel the beauty and the blinking of the stars. You mentioned about the poems and astronomy. For example, in the poems, we used to write that the moon shined before in the ancient times like in today. And Mr. Wang, what's your take about the Romans in astronomy? As has been said, there are a lot of humanity feelings in astronomy. The entire planet is part of the cosmos. We're just the dark blue point in the cosmos. In 1992, the traveler looked back at the Earth and took a photo of the Earth. So we started our reflection. Humans are already dominant on the Earth, but look at the history. What about the other dominant creatures in the Earth before, like dinosaurs? Maybe after 3,000 years or 30,000 years, some other creatures will replace humans to be the dominant creature, just like how the dinosaurs became extinct. So try to stay alert when we feel complacent. We must have an equal perspective about all creatures. We are just an ordinary creature in the cosmos. That's the enlightenment we got from astronomy. I used to watch a fiction film talking about how people will travel through the time with technological support in the future. But something accidentally happened. A couple on their honeymoon traveled through the time to a specific time, and they found out that one asteroid was revolving around the planet, and they shot down the asteroid. And then it turned out that that asteroid was exactly the one that hit the Earth and made the dinosaurs extinct. Of course, they couldn't change history, but with some cutting-edge technologies that's beyond our examination, when they came back to the Earth and when they sent out the telewaves signals, there was no response. As Mr. Wang said, Right now, humans are powerful. But if one asteroid hits the Earth, we may be just like the dinosaurs and disappear from the planet. As I said, when our ancestors look up at the heaven, they feel the harmony between man and heaven. It's not just humans living on the Earth. Man was interdependent upon the cosmos. The Earth was not isolated in its existence in the cosmos. So today, we are not just presenting our viewers the shower of meteors. We are also sharing about what feelings, what ideas we have in our mind when we observe the sky. And we welcome the viewers, the audience, to interact with us. Whatever you are feeling or thinking in your mind, what questions do you have about the meteor shower, please feel free to leave your comments and questions. In addition to the three of us discussing about the cosmos and the Geminid meteor shower, my colleague Lijiang is right now in Lijiang, who is now surrounded by the astronomy lovers, observing the Geminid meteor shower outdoor on the site. So maybe just like my colleague Lijiang, you can feel free to go to the site for on-site observation. Now let's turn to my colleague Lijiang. And what feelings do our astronomy lovers have right now? Hello everyone. I am CMT reporter Lijiang. I am now in Yulong County with an altitude of 2,300 meters. It's cold and freezing outdoors, but people are very active. Visitors from every corner of the nation came specifically for this shower. You may be able to hear cheers. That means there was a meteor just now. And the louder the shout, the brighter the meteors. As we know, the celestial event carries people's expectations. We have invited Mr. Feng from Lijiang Municipal Astronomy Association to share something with us. Mr. Feng, could you please introduce yourself? Good evening. My name is Feng Zhou. I am from Lijiang Municipal Astronomy Association, and I specifically work on the astronomical science promotion. Why does the meteor shower, why does Lijiang attract so many people to observe this meteor shower? With our years of observation experience, the Geminid meteor shower is the most stable one. It never disappoints us in history, no matter what is the phase of the moon every year. Basically, we can ensure the count of the meteors. And added by the fact that usually the Geminid meteor shower happened during the 13th and 15th of December, which coincided with the longest days of sunny days in China. Geminid meteor shower is the most stable one, and it makes it easier for the ordinary people to observe it. It has never failed us? Yes. And that's why so many people come to Lijiang to observe the Geminid meteor shower. And where is the meteor shower right now? Where is the Geminid? Behind us, we can see a very bright star, maybe to your east, to your northeast. There is the Jupiter, and above Jupiter you can find the two dots, two bright dots. And if you move towards the Hunters, the Orion, you will find the Geminid right above the ground. So it's in the east. On the east, you can find the Jupiter first, and right above the Jupiter, you can find the Gemini. So you can take the Jupiter as the starting point to find the Gemini, which is the radiant point. What is the story about this meteor shower? Why is it named the Geminid meteor shower? From a visual perspective, the meteor shower came from the direction of the Geminid, but actually it had no relationship with Geminid. All of the meteor showers were named by the location. There is no other intonations. So that means it doesn't mean the meteor shower came directly from the Geminid. Could you give us some reminders for our observation in winter? The first point, we need to find an open space. If you're in the downtown area with the high-rise buildings, the mountains, that makes it more challenging to observe. We need to find an open space distant from the lights from the city area. And also keep yourself warm, wear thick layers. Usually we started our observation from 9 to 10 p.m. till the sunrise. So you need to wrap yourself with your hats, your gloves. Try to take hot water in order for you to stay long outdoors. I think we are pretty well equipped. We have hot water. And also I find some telescope. Do they usually use telescope to observe? I was asked about that question a lot, asking whether they can use the telescope to observe. They thought that with the telescope they can see more clearly or see more meteors. But one thing is overlooked. Although we know the meteors come from a certain region, but it's not fixed. Our naked eye can observe an angle of 50 degrees. And for the telescope, our sight field is 50, but telescope can see less than 10 degrees. And when the meteors flash by quickly, your telescope is not able to observe the entire process. You need to find a very dark place and just take your eyes. That's enough. Even the meteors flash by. With a telescope, you can just see a moment of it, not the entire process. And also, it cannot be very big. If it's big enough, the meteors may flash by the entire sky. That's why I recommend you to quit the telescope. Your naked eyes are good enough. Try to get accustomed to the darkness. And could you give us some pointers when we observe with our eyes? Some people say that the split vision will help us to observe more. The naked eyes are just like a minor telescope because at, for example, 25 years old, when we stay in the darkness, our pupils will get bigger when we are relaxed. So at the peak time, our pupils will be magnified, will grow bigger by 7 mm. So try to accustom to the darkness for 15 to 20 minutes before we start the observation. That will help to relax the muscles on our eyes. And when you're adapted to the darkness, you can see clearly the things and the stars in the sky. That's very important. Try to avoid watching anything bright, because if you do, the pupils will grow smaller. That's not helpful for observation. When we drive and we enter into the tunnel, in the beginning, everything looks very dark. And when we get out of the tunnel, our eyes feel painful because your pupils grow bigger in the darkness. You are accustomed to that darkness. And when you get out of the tunnel, a large beam of light enters into your eyes and you may be tearing. That's the same thing for the celestial event observation. So we recommend you to prepare yourself for 15 minutes in the complete pitch darkness. And you will be able to see some even dark meteors or the Milky Way. When I look at the direction of the Geminid, that's almost the direction of Lijiang downtown area. The lights were pretty bright in the city area. Will that be a factor? Any light pollution will undermine our observation. In the city area, you can find only several stars. For example, in the downtown area of the Lijiang city. So light pollution is the enemy for our astronomical observation. That's why we stay away from the city area. And we choose this location because of the high altitude and because of the transparency, the visibility, and the darkness level of the sky. Those are premium for observation. I also see some boards written by the darkness protection. What does the wording mean? The fundamental goal is to control the light pollution, to pave the way for our observation. The lights may cover any traces of some celestial event. The large telescopes are able to observe some extreme celestial events. But with the light pollution, there will be 100 times difference of the capability of telescope. So that's why we have circled a region of darkness protection to control the lightness. And secondly, we hope to protect the growth of animals and plants. Some animals are very sensitive to the lights. They came out in the daytime when it's bright, and when it's getting dark, they rest. Any creature needs to rest. You cannot overexhaust yourselves, otherwise you cannot grow properly. With this policy of darkness protection, we are not only protecting the sky, we are also trying to ensure the breeding and growth of the animals and plants. It's multifaceted. What are the measures of that policy? This place does feel darker than elsewhere. According to many people, such a policy seems to be just about turning off the lights. That's purely wrong. We stated that for the darkness protection, it means we educate people about using the lights properly. people's lives cannot be separated from the lighting. But some lighting systems are just a waste. So we have done a lot of things. We don't ask the villagers to use the very strong lamps like the LED lights, which have very long wavelengths. We recommend more flexible lamps, and some lights shouldn't shoot directly at the sky. The role of the lamps is to enable humans to walk on the path. So the goal of the darkness protection is to educate people about darkness and guide people to scientifically and correctly use the lamps. For example, at the night time, when the lamps in your houses are lit up, try to draw the curtains closed. And every year, we have a campaign called the light turned off for 1 hour. For our planet, it's the same thing. We may add some lighting system for the outdoors, for the villagers' safety, and we may do some restructuring of their existing lighting system as well. Another question is back to the meteor shower. What's your observation result yesterday? Yesterday in our observation, it wasn't the maximum. A girl told me she counted 207 in 3 to 4 hours' time. So the count was pretty stable, but she didn't encounter the peak time. We can continue the expectation. The meteor shower is just like the rocks falling on the Earth. When the Earth revolves, we pass through the rocks. When the rocks fall onto the Earth, we can see them. Maybe at some hours tonight, you can find the peak time. Some netizens are asking about the starting time. It's actually already started, but the count is out of our control. It depends on our luck. Could you give us your forecast about the premium time of observation? Based on our previous years of experience, the maximum time ranges from 1 to 4 a.m. So just wait out there. Nationwide, except the northeastern China, the lights were just rising from the ground. Some people tell me that in Shandong province, they are now able to find some meteors already. So get ready. And find a spot to wait for the meteor shower. So we have different time for the premium observation time across the whole nation. And we still have some room of imagination. We have seen the pictures of meteors. The picture seems to be covered all by the meteors. Is that the same as reality? Actually, no. We keep emphasizing that. If you can truly see with your naked eye about the high density of the meteors, it means a pretty big comet or asteroid is bumping into the Earth. That's why all the debris fall all together onto the ground. Just like what you find in the fiction film. So if you are able to find out such a stunning picture of a large number of meteor showers falling onto the Earth, that's going to be a disaster. So how did that picture got taken? Maybe Our photographers observed for 1 to 2 nights, and they put all of the meteors they have observed on that one same picture. It doesn't happen simultaneously. They just synthesized the pictures of different meteors on just one. The Geminid meteor shower at its peak time, maybe about 150 per hour. On average, it's about 2.5 meteors per minute. At the high plateau, the maximum could be 300 meteors per hour, which means 5 meteors per minute. So it's impossible for us to observe so many meteors at one moment. A netizen say that he found a very bright one and he makes wishes instantly. Why can you find a very bright one? You must be very lucky because most of the meteors are very light in weight. And when they enter into our atmosphere, they get burnt out. For every meteor, their weight is around 1 gram or even less. If you find a very brighter one, it means it's heavier in weight, and the heavier meteor crosses through the atmosphere. So bigger meteor means, brighter meteor means the bigger the size of the meteor. And it hasn't been burnt all out before falling into the ground. And when it hit into the ground, you will find a falling stone, an aerolite, just as the news reported. For example, in southwest China, it's very difficult to find out those aerolites, but it's easier to find them in Xinjiang, in deserts, in Gobi deserts. Will there be any new meteor shower being formed? For your information, usually the meteor shower is relevant to a comet or asteroid. Take the Geminid meteor shower as an example. It's very special because it's relevant to an asteroid called Python, numbered 3200. It's pretty big. It's about 5 kilometers diameter. That's big among all the asteroids, and the orbit cycle is very close to the Sun. It takes the asteroid to complete the revolution around the Sun every 1.4 years. And it can be very cold in one place, like 0 Celsius degree, but at some other spots, it may be as hot as 700 Celsius degrees, and the rocks may fall down into the space. And because of the smaller gravity, the debris cannot be kept in the orbit. They fall from the orbit into the space, and one day they will intersect with the orbit of the Earth. For example, the Geminid meteor shower falls onto the orbit of the Earth. Maybe one day, if a comet changes its orbit, there will be a new meteor shower taking shape. That's how many existent meteor showers were found out in history, but we need long-term observation. There are many good wishes online, making wishes about themselves like a quick rehabilitation from the injury or a good examination result. Many beautiful wishes have been bestowed on the meteor shower. Are you going to make a wish this year? If I observe a meteor and to make a wish, my wish would be more challenging. I could still remember that in around 202 or 203, I observed thousands of the Leonid meteor shower. And almost every night, we can find some individual meteors when I was young. Maybe the wishes I made didn't come true, but that habit is truly representing hopes of people. If I have to make a wish, my wish would be hoping everyone's safe and healthy on this planet. As to others, not too much. In the end, we would love to give the best wishes to our audience. We hope our motherland will be strong and prosperous, and I hope everyone could have a happy family. And back to the showroom. Thank you for your wishes. I believe you must have observed some meteors outdoors. Listening to your introduction, I was impressed by Mr. Fang Zhou. He has different ideas about the meteor shower. And I just scanned the comments of our audience online. Some say, I found a very big meteor, and for the next one to come, I will make a wish. I hope you are able to again. A netizen from Beijing commented on Cineblog, saying he was reminded about the days when he observed the meteors while following the idol. With the introduction and discussion between Lijiang and Fang Zhou, I learned something about how to observe the meteor shower. Our two experts say that our naked eyes are just like the telescope, but do not fix it on a minimized location, for example, around the region of Geminid. And don't ever question your instinct. And remember to make a wish. Secondly, outdoors, prepare yourself. You are not in a hurry to start your observation. Get accustomed to the darkness 15 minutes time, and then you will find more stars in the sky. I would love to answer a question from a Guangxi netizen. Why can't I observe the meteor shower? So what is the reason? What can he do to solve it? First of all, try to make sure if you have a sunny day locally. That's the most important thing. If it's not a sunny day, you are not able to see one. And also light pollution. It's a big problem. Thirdly, do not fix it on one small region. Maybe you should go to an open space. Fourth, do not expect too much from a fixed time points. It's accidental. If you have a sunny day with no light pollution, I think you're definitely able to find one. It's just not the time yet. Mr. Wang, just wait there and be patient. A quick answer. Be patient and keep waiting. Lijiang was just now in Gaomeigu village, and in Nasi ethnic language, that name means a place higher than the sky. So does it mean that Gaomeigu village has a higher altitude with better environment for observation? Lijiang was sitting against the background of beautiful starry sky. So could you introduce something about Gaomeigu village? I have a deep bond about the village. I worked there for a dozen of years. Actually, to be more precise, 17 to 18 years. Now Gaomeigu has come to the observation season already. It will last until May the next year. So for 220 to 250 days, Gaomeigu village enjoyed sunny days. And also in Lijiang, the air is pretty transparent. In astronomy, we have a parameter called seeing. With our naked eyes, we are able to see as far as 150 kilometers. In northern China, you might question about 150 kilometers, but in western Yunnan and western Sichuan, you are truly able to have a visibility of 150 to even 200 kilometers. And thirdly, the altitude, the sea level. For scientific research, altitude in Gaomeigu village is suitable. The fourth point to make about the village is there is a very unique geographical advantage. Around Lijiang, there is no other observatory. That's why it's a unique advantage. Another advantage is the latitude. It's 26 degrees in Northern Hemisphere. We can cover the sky in the Southern Hemisphere. For example, at that location, we can observe the Alpha, two fixed stars, and at 11 p.m., you are able to observe some well-known stars. For example, the Canopus, or the Leonid. That's really rare. And the Milky Way. The Milky Way is at the location of the Southern Hemisphere, and that's about the advantage of Lijiang. And also transportation is very convenient in Lijiang. It's convenient for the visitors to come from elsewhere in China to Lijiang. That's why Lijiang has become a most sought-after place for observation. In addition, you can enjoy other tourist spots like the guest houses, the architecture in Lijiang, the Nazi culture. Lijiang has become the destination for the star observation because of those advantages. For example, the seeing capacity, and at the night time you're able to see very far because it's very clear in the sky, and the light pollution is very low. And for Gaomeigu village, it has less light pollution. When the lights are all turned off, you're able to see the entire starry sky. You also mentioned about the latitude of 26 degrees in Northern Hemisphere, with which you can observe not only the sky in the Northern Hemisphere, but some celestial events in Southern Hemisphere. And just now, you have mentioned about the Canopus. That's really a new information for me. Maybe our netizens have never heard about the Canopus. Could you please introduce more about that star, Canopus? In China, Canopus may be the brightest star to the southernmost place in China. You might not be familiar with Canopus, but to put it another way, you must have heard about it. It is also named as the Old Man of the South Pole. As the character in The Journey to the West. So Canopus is not frequently heard. And if you observe, it's a very lonely, bright star, close to the south. Unlike the other stars, for example, the Orion, they are also to the south, but Canopus is very lonely because of the location. That's why our ancestors call it the Old Man of the South Pole. And I am from Yulong Snow Mountain. with the same altitude of Gaomeigu village, and the snow mountain was well protected. When I found the canopus, I felt it very lonely. So what provinces in China or what location would enable us to observe canopus? In Yulong Snow Mountain. Since I haven't observed canopus for a very long time, but basically it's about 20 degrees against the skyline. Which means if you are a little bit northern, you are unable to observe it. And if you are in southern China, you are certainly able to find canopus, for example, in Hainan province. If you're from southern China, your observation likelihood is much higher. Mr. Wang, what's your knowledge about canopus? Take the telescope as an example. We usually observe canopus with our naked eyes. Mr. Wang is in the circle of scientific research. So after that, Mr. Wang, I would love to ask you something you are adept at. You said you have worked in Gaomeigu for 20 years' time or almost. Could you introduce to us about the uniqueness of that observatory? Or what's its significance in scientific research? The Lijiang observation station has become a very important base in southern China. And the 2.4, 1.6, 1.8 telescopes stand in large number in Lijiang. There are about 23 telescopes over there. They can observe the radiance and the sun. What are the targets of the observation? What astronomical phenomenon of that station? Different telescopes have different functions. Take the 2.4 meters telescope in Lijiang as an example. Because of the premium condition of the Lijiang station, it can observe the black hole and also other galaxies, for example, satellites. And thirdly, the superstars, and also the small asteroids in the solar systems. Last year, the 2.4-meter telescope in Lijiang has observed something very close to what we have today, an asteroid, XAE asteroid 2024. Two big telescopes in China have observed that asteroid, which was about to hit the Earth, and they gave out alert. They took photos of that asteroid. That's a very good example of sending alerts about asteroids. If we were able to take photos, we were able to stop it from hitting us. We might not be familiar about that process. It's very professional. Could you please elaborate on it? For example, in China, what's the situation about China's research and surveillance of the asteroids? We tend to focus on the Mars and Jupiter asteroids. For those asteroids, they are like the live fossils of the solar systems. We use them to study the early days history of the solar system. That's very critical. And also, those asteroids have very big research capabilities. There are so many minerals and resources on them. We pay high attention to the asteroids. And in addition to the asteroids belts, there might be some regular ones. For example, they used to come from Jupiter, and those asteroids will be threats to the Earth. Up till now, for the big ones, maybe at the size of 1.5 kilometers, we were able to instantly find them. For a diameter of 140 meters, we were able to find 1/3 of the total. For less than 50 meters diameter, we found 3%. For 20 meters diameter, we found only 0.3% of the total. What about the remaining unobserved ones, especially the smaller sized ones? What can we do? First, telescopes can help. For example, Lijiang Observatory, the 1-meter telescope, and the 1.8 meters telescope in Lijiang were able to observe the asteroids. And Lijiang Observatory starts to establish 2 facilities to observe the solar system. 4.2 meters and 8.5 meters. Those 2 are very valuable. You might question, there is a systemic bug about the telescopes, because what about the daytime? What can we do in the daytime? They work only in the nighttime. We have to rely on the radar system. China is now improving the 30 meters of telescope. In addition to 30 to 40 meters of telescope in Xinjiang, Jilin, Yunnan provinces, China is operating on 120 meters of telescope. And China is really leading the way in terms of the radio telescope technology. This year, Tiangong number 2 performed a mission on an asteroid. It collected samples from the asteroid and came back. And a 3EP comet was studied. It was a long-term mission. It takes about 10 years' time in that project. During the 15th five-year time, there is a mission for a potentially threatening asteroid. We must start our examination of potential hit. Our overland telescopes and aircrafts must start working on that mission. To repeat the key information, the parent body of today's shower is the asteroid Patong, and we just have heard about the operation of the observatory and the national technologies deployment in China, as well as our mission in the 15th five-year plan period. There might be missions to avoid or destroy some of those threatening asteroids. We need to verify the process. Thumbs up to those technologies. While we are observing the romantic Geminid meteor shower, let's keep in mind about the role played by those national key technologies. I have another question. In addition to Geminid meteor shower, tonight, starting from tonight, there will be less than half a month before we enter into the new year. In the remaining time of this year, are we going to be able to observe any celestial event just like Geminid meteor shower? If you mean naked eyes observation, then since it's approaching the end of the year, Geminid meteor shower may be the last one. There will be no more magnificent event to happen. But of course, if you have telescope, there is a comet in your waiting list. 3I means it was the third one coming from outside of the solar system. Some people are saying that is that going to be an alien? And some people say that it's in a long shape. Based on our theory of astronomy, we have never found such a body before. Some people are questioning whether it's an alien spaceship. I'm not a professional, but from my perspective, I think it's a comet. But the 3A Atlas is about to leave us. If you have the conditions and you have some techniques of deep space observation, you can use your camera to take photos of that comet. But of course, the time window is very limited. It's leaving us. So grasp this opportunity and it will never come back. Okay, Mr. Wang. In addition to the meteor shower, Jupiter accompanying the moon, is that phenomenon already with us in December? It's not going to happen. Because the Jupiter is right now in the Geminid. At 10 p.m., you can start your observation. If the Jupiter is accompanying the moon, that means it's full moon. And judging by the location, it's unlikely that it's going to happen. Another question is about the probability of observing the cynosphere meteor shower. It's actually just the Beidou system, the Little Dipper. My dad used to ask me, when will we have a true meteor shower? That's beyond our imagination. Like we said, in 1 hour, if you can observe 50, it's pretty magnificent. But for Little Dipper, for 1 hour, you can observe 10 if you have the premium condition. For that kind of meteor shower, it is a celestial event. But for ordinary people, appreciation value is not that big. I have to take time to wait for it. Maybe you can only wait for one meteor 1 hour. But it's of course defined as a celestial event, yet to happen. I think some celestial events have the biggest appreciation value, for example, the solar eclipse or the lunar eclipse. But they may not necessarily happen. For example, the total lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse depends on the longitude. And as to meteor shower, as long as you have a good sunny day, the meteor shower would come to you unexpectedly. Because the lunar eclipse may change along with the time. And as to Geminid meteor shower, it started coming to us since early December, even though the peak time is in those 2 days. Because the counts grow in number along those past half a month. Geminid meteor shower is very special because once it passes the time of the peak count, it will decline very quickly in number. So the 13s and 14s are premium for observation. Yes, that means the peak count time will most likely come in those 2 days, according to the regular history. But it doesn't mean that the meteor shower started only in those days, but actually they started 2 weeks ago. 已经进入到这辆车所抛下的那些乱七八糟东西里。